What is it that bother you about this exam? Yes, thank you, Ms. Echo.
I think for me with the exam, I think I have the biggest fear I have is maybe coming across a question based on a topic I've never seen before.
And I see that there are a lot of nodding of heads. How many of you feel that way? Right? You feel very strongly that you might not know the topic. Okay. And have you studied the section in the notes which says what technical knowledge you should have?
Yes, I've gone through the technical section. Yeah.
As everybody else, do you know about that section in the notes? Not really? Maybe? Okay, you need to know that. Okay, so you wanted to say something else, Riseko? No. Okay, good. So that is the general consensus, right? So today when we look at the papers that we have today, I will try and illustrate for you how you can gain confidence on technical issues that you might not have come across before. So I get a feeling that when you see something that is not in your field, you clam up and you don't have access to the database in your brain of the principles that you would normally apply if somebody asked you that question outside of that context. Okay. And you need to feel that you need to know that you are equipped. You have this training to be able to adjust to this other field, because the principles are more or less the same. In fact, they're invariably the same. Okay, but I'll show you. We do have a health question. A lot of you don't know, maybe aren't working in health, right? We have an investment question. Maybe some of you are not working in investments. Okay, so that's not the field. Okay. Anything else? There must be something else. Yes, Fatima.
One of the things that I'm really worried about is they said that there should be a line between teaching your audience and conveying a message and communicating. So I think that line needs to be very clear, where you're actually just communicating and not teaching. So how much detail do you go into to the layman?
All right, so there are two aspects there. Who feels that way too? About the teaching and whether you teach that or whether you're giving explanations that can maybe come out of a textbook as opposed to this is a person who wouldn't relate to a textbook format, etc. Okay, there's that side of it. And then there is also sometimes the person who's receiving your correspondence may feel that you're talking down to them. So it is a fine line. You're quite right. But that's why we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the identity that you assume when you write the letter, the email, the brochure, and the audience for whom it's intended. Okay? Good. You had it.
So the main thing for me is that I feel, because I've written this a couple of times, and I feel like every time you have an idea and you feel like you've learned from the last time, and then the next time you write it, it's completely different. I think for the one I went for exam counseling, and the advice I was given felt contradictory to what I would have expected is expected of me in a communications exam. For example, it was a presentation, and the one where we had to use the FAQs given, and I remember in varsity when we did comms, they always say like, don't just regurgitate the information you're given, maybe summarize it or so that you don't have a lot of information. But in the exam counseling, I was told that for that particular exam, they wanted you to list all of the FAQs because they had given you the FAQs, so that was free marks. So it's things like that feel like it's not consistent in what is expected. That's why from one exam to another, you feel like, okay, I thought I knew the right thing to do, but then now they're asking for something different. I don't know, maybe.
Okay, yeah. That's right. Okay, so this is the nature of it, isn't it? You heard what is your name again? Shamiso. You heard what Shamiso was saying, right? And then you go for the counseling, and the counseling seems to contradict what you experienced. So we do have a tendency here. Alice, you writing, no, not Alice. There's somebody else who's writing the UK exams. So they are quite different. They don't give as many notes as we have. And we used to have that trend. And then we felt it was more important that you had more notes. And sometimes the notes have been so many that you have to spend a lot of time going through them and deciding what you're going to put in and then leave out. Not deciding, but asking yourself, would this be necessary? So the best thing is to do as many papers as you possibly can, so that, and also within the time frame, so that your technique of answering becomes quicker, and you can spend more time on sifting through what is relevant. Okay? You remember you did that for other technical exams. Now I'm just saying to you that because you aced that, there's part of that technique that is still useful here. It's not that you want to finish writing quickly. You don't want to do that. But you want to finish addressing the issues, and you want to put your format in quickly. You want to, do those things and decide for yourself what must come in and what must come out. So that you will have to. There's a fine line between getting a different. Every time there will be a different scenario. So, but these two exams that we're looking at today are lovely examples, though, of how much information, etc. Okay, thank you very much for that. Anything else? What about in the exam? Time constraints in the exam. Do you find time constraint? You feel that you can't finish it? Does anybody feel that way? Yes, you feel that way. Antonio, you feel that way? You feel you rushed. Okay, so it does speak to the practice there as well. And it also speaks to the confidence, right? And I want to tell you now that you are equipped to handle the communication exam, right? You speak to people when they ask you these questions, and you raise your level depending on who your audience is, or you recontextualize it for somebody if they have no idea, right? So you do that anyway. You are doing that. You're making those adjustments. Now all of a sudden you feel that you can't make that adjustment because it's almost artificial. I want you to imagine yourself in those scenarios. It's the anticipation, anticipating the types of questions that you might have. So from now on until the exam, you must be thinking on a daily basis, this would make a very good question, what I've just come across in my workplace. If you think about it, how many of you have actually thought about what would be a nice question? Have you thought? Yes, Fatima, you have. Great, that's wonderful. Because that means, for most of you, no one's from Durban? You're from Durban, right? Okay. Are you a bit of a surfer? No? Okay. Okay, you're from Durban, okay. Antonio, you lived right close to the sea. Did you surf? Oh, you didn't surf though, okay. Neither did I, and I live close to the sea, so it's okay. But what I want to say is that when you surf, right, you don't know what's going to come next. But the best surfers are the ones that anticipate, and they're in the water all the time. So you can't get this exam without getting your feet wet. In fact, you have to immerse yourself fully in it. There's no way getting round it. You just have to go through it and feel that you are the person that they want you to be when you're answering that question. You are that actuary. You're not who you are. You are that actuary. You are actually literally immersing yourself and faking to be that actuary. And it sometimes doesn't feel right. Most of all if it's not the same field. So Tafari, you're looking at me with a quizzical look. Okay. And I'll explain as we go along how this makes a difference. Because the language, if you immerse yourself into that role, the language will come to you more easily. When you were young, right, you were little used to play games, imagine, right? And you have to do a bit of that here. Because it's going to ring false. It's going to sound like Fatima's writing this letter, not the actuary, the consultant that the question has placed you in. Not the broker, not the medical aid person or whoever, okay? So just think about that, all right? You literally have to become that person because in language you can feel when the person is not aligning themselves fully with that identity. Okay, it's a difficult one, but so it's, yeah. So these are the questions, I think, that you'll probably ask as well. So the question you had, Fatima, is linked to the tone as well. The choice of words that you would use. It's very different when you're going to choose, when you're speaking to your mum about something, right? Than if you're speaking to a client. Okay. So we're going to try and unravel that today. So there's more clarity, right? And we can see the pathways. And finally, as I said, a case of identity.